Okay, so welcome to this video. So in this video, we're going to be discussing about drawing trend lines. Now, trend line is one of the most important concepts I use in my trading because it enables me to be able to spot potential moves in the market and be able to latch onto it while there's still time. So let's get straight to business. So the first thing in trend line is that you always want to start from 2 points that already exist. Remember, already exists something that is already there in the market. For example, if price should have already done something like this, a down movement, another retracement, and another down movement. Now this gives us two existing points in this place, which is here and here. So we'll make use of these 2 points by simply carrying our trend line, and we connect these 2 points together. So when we connect it, we want to always extend it because we are anticipating future price. So when we extend it, anytime that price should retrace back to this point, because remember, principle of the market structure is that after every impulse move, there's a retracement. So if price should retrace back to this point, on the third touch of this trend line should be where we'll be looking for our entry. On the third touch of this trend line, if it gives us our entry, then we go for a sell. Now this trend line will continue even if after going for a sell it comes back up for a pullback and it comes back to that point, we will still be looking for a sell around here. Fortunately, if the market is kind with us, it's go in our direction, or it continues the other way, forming a new trend. So this is as simple. You already want to see an existing market forming itself, showing us the first touch and the second touch, and we just connect what has already happened to current price. So I will clear this right now. Let us go back to our 4-hour time frame and reset this. So let me look for an example of a trend line. So in this place we see let me come here and zoom in a bit. So in this place, what do we see market doing? First of all, we notice that market is in a trend. Now what type of trend? Because of the fact that we're forming highs that is coming down, that is descending, means that we're in a downtrend. So what do we see the market do? We first formed the highest point here, then we formed another point. So this place gives us our 1 2 3 move, which is this 1 2 3, like I mentioned there, which has already given us 2 points for us to be able to connect together. So we connect this high and we connect this second high together and extend the market. So as you can see, we've had our first touch here, our second touch, and when price, after having this little impulse move here, retrace back to this point, after touching the trend line, sellers continued and price dropped and even continued dropping further. Do you see how it is? Even if we forget about this point here, we forget about this point and we simply just connect, let's call it this high and this one together, because you see impulse, retracement, impulse, and retracement. We can connect these places together to also get here. Okay, in a sense it didn't really get up to that point, but okay, our third touch is actually here. So you see our first touch here, second touch, and lastly the third touch. So all these points exactly connected together and give us a good trading opportunity to continue trading the market downwards. Now this is just an example. We're going to be going to look at more. So in this current market, we have the highest points here. We're in a downtrend, so the trend line will be facing down. Downtrend, trend line faces down. Uptrend, trend line faces up. So we are in downtrend currently because of we're seeing the market is falling down. So we have the first touch, we have the second touch here. We have the first point and the second point. So we draw our trend line. We don't just draw our trend line and keep like this. We are anticipating that price will get back to it. So when we draw our trend line, we want to stretch it out so that whenever price wants to come back to it, we'll be ready to execute our trades. So at this particular point, we've not gotten our third touch yet, but if anything should happen that the market should pull back to this level, we'll be looking for a sell at this point. So how in particular do we draw our trend lines? Now, the way do we draw our trend lines from either the top of the candle or from the wick, or we should enter the body? When I mean like that, should it just be on top of the wick like this, or it should cross the body? Like I see some people drawing their trend lines like this. Now, the way I'm going to tell you is out of my own experience, which one works better for me. Now, I do not draw my trend line like this, neither do I always draw my trend line like this. What works for me is something like this, something that doesn't cut in too deep with the body of the candlestick, but can also cross the wick. The wick being this lines up here, it will cross the wick, but not too deep into the body of the candlesticks that are being touched. It shouldn't cut in deep like this. This is like almost half of this, so I don't use that method to trade. I normally just keep it a bit up, not too deep into the candle. Yeah, so for that, examples will tell us more on that. So let's look for other examples of trend line. Good, I've already drawn my structure out here already. As you can see, what I'm looking for here, ignore the blue lines please, is I'll pick from this first top, this second top, and then we're seeing price is currently in a retracement. So if price should get here, I should be looking for a sell at this point. Where else again? Trend lines. Let me draw it so that you see. Good. Now this is a good example. We've seen that price have done a first touch and a second touch here. So all I simply have to do is to carry my trend line from this point to this point, and I draw it out. So as you can see, if someone has simply waited for this third touch, he would have been able to latch onto this current downtrend that is happening on this point. I would have been able to get all this by himself. So this is just one of the several ways of drawing your trend line. We've been getting the examples of downtrend. Let me look for an uptrend. Good. USD has been going up for some time now. So how do we draw our trend line? Remember, wait for our first touch, which I can see from the bottom here, second touch, and then draw both and extend. We draw it and extend it further. Now we could see that the first place our third touch came from was, it didn't get close to this, but rather at this point here. So you can see 1, 2, 3. So on this point, if you are watching this trade, all you simply had to do was just execute your buys, and you'll be in profit, insane profit. Now another thing about trend lines, whenever the market breaks out from the trend line, it normally signifies a reversal in the market. But most of the times, market can break down and break back inside like it did here. In this kind of situation, what we simply do is simply to adjust our trend line to current market structure. In that, my trend line was like this before. In this kind of situation where the market broke out, and instead of continuing downwards, it went back up. In this situation, I will simply adjust my trend line because market structure has changed, and I will also change. If not, I will get beaten by the market if I try to take a trade. So I'll adjust my own trend line to fit the current market price, which is this point. So as I adjusted my trend line to this point, we still have our third touch, but here now is our second touch, and we'll be anticipating the third touch, which happened around here. So this is basically how the market is. So okay, I didn't draw this well. Yes, so this is how our trend line should be. Before it was like this, they didn't even come in contact with our candlestick, which is wrong. So let me look for another example. This is another example. So Please let me even clear this. So we are currently forming lower lows and lower highs. So we got our highest points here and our second highest points here. So what we simply do is pick our trend line, come from this top, put it here and extend it forward. So as you can see, we had our first touch, second touch. On the third touch, price simply came here and did a lot of rubbish, but later at the end of the day, it tanked down below. Simple and short. Price always does what it frequently what repeats always price always repeats itself in the market. So you can see here it came here first, second, third, everything tanked down. Yeah, so GBP JPY is a trade I took this week. So we see that market really dumped here, and it was simply by knowing what I do. So there are many things in this trade, but I will just teach you the most basic fundamental thing I used to execute this trade, which was my 3 touch of the trend line. Now this was even more than 3 touches. If I could talk more on this, let's say in total it was more than 3 touches, but the most fundamental thing for you to understand in trend line is that you must have at least 2 touches for you to establish your trend line. If you get your third touch and it goes in your way, good. And if you get another touch after the trend line, it is also good. Your third touch doesn't mean that it's only 3 touches you should be trading. Nope. You should always look for other opportunities following it. So remember, the most important thing is how you draw your trend line. I mean, one of the most important things is how you draw it. Always pick out from 2 places that price had formed lows, 2 highs or 2 lows. Now here we have 2 highs. I pick out my trend line, I connect them together. After connecting them together, I extend it. Okay, after extending it, we found out that price cut in and came back in, and we're also cutting deep into candlesticks, which is wrong. So I adjust my trend line to correct market price by putting it at a suitable position. Now, the best thing for you to use to learn this trend line is actually through practice. The more you practice with it, and for my students who are consuming this video, after you practice your trend line, always send it back to me. And this is for you, Joe. I normally notice you made a mistake. You will normally use this arrow tool. This arrow tool here. Arrow tool is wrong. It is your trend line. If you want to find your trend line, hover around your favorite bar. I'm sure I must have set it up for you. This is a cross. This is a rectangle, and this is the trend line. The trend line doesn't have this arrow at the end of it. Doesn't have this arrowhead at the end of it. This is an arrow. So this is not your trend line, rather it's just an arrow. So pick out your trend line, come to this trend line here, pick out your trend line and draw it out. So yeah, this is the basics of trend line. For more future videos, I might be doing more advanced trading with trend line, but for now, if you watch this, I appeal to you to try your best to practice this. It's something that if you could learn and learn it very well, it could go a long way for you in trading. So thank you guys and peace out.